A stern voice boomed over the loudspeaker. "Principal Harris has suspended you for saluting the flag." The boy's eyes didn't waver. His hand still raised high, crisp, and steady. By dawn, massive military trucks rumbled on a campus, engines drowning out shocked whispers. Welcome to XQ Incredible Stories. Let's uncover what really happened. Jacob Turner was not your average high school student. At 16, he carried himself with a quiet confidence that came from years of discipline instilled at home. Every morning, before classes began, Jacob was the first in line to salute the flag during the Pledge of Allegiance. It wasn't just habit, it was a matter of respect, a tribute to the country his family had proudly served for generations. His sharp, crisp salute was the kind that could make even the hardest of men nod in approval. Jacob's connection to the flag ran deep. His grandfather, Samuel Turner, was a retired Navy SEAL, a man of few words but immense presence. From an early age, Samuel taught Jacob the meaning behind the stars and stripes: sacrifice, freedom, and honor. To Jacob, the flag wasn't just a symbol hanging in the school gym or waving outside on holidays. It was a living testament to those who had fought and bled to preserve the freedoms many took for granted. But the school wasn't a place where everyone shared Jacob's passion. Principal Harris, a man known for his rigid enforcement of rules and a cautious approach to political matters, had recently introduced new policies limiting student demonstrations. The school hallways whispered with tension. Some students questioned what respect for the flag looked like. Others quietly feared that standing out could lead to trouble. Still, every morning without fail, Jacob saluted. It was a small act, but in the growing climate of uncertainty, even small acts could have big consequences. What Jacob didn't know was that this day's salute would mark the beginning of an upheaval he and his family could never have imagined. The simple gesture, meant to honor his country, would soon ignite a firestorm that shook the entire school and community. As the bell rang and the pledge began, all eyes turned to Jacob, the boy whose respect for the flag would soon be met with a challenge far greater than a classroom reprimand. The halls of Lincoln High School were buzzing with the usual morning chatter, lockers clanging, sneakers squeaking against the polished floors. But beneath the normal rhythm lurked an undercurrent of tension that had been growing steadily over the past few weeks. The school administration, led by Principal Harris, had implemented new policies aimed at maintaining neutrality in all matters deemed potentially divisive, especially those touching on patriotism and political expression. Teachers were quietly reminded not to allow displays that might disrupt the educational environment, and students found themselves walking a fine line between expressing personal beliefs and risking disciplinary action. Some whispered about censorship, others shrugged, too focused on upcoming exams and weekend plans to care. But for a certain group, including Jacob Turner, the new rules felt like a threat. Jacob's daily salute to the flag was one of the few bright spots in his mornings, a moment of clarity, pride, and calm before the hectic day began. The school gym, where assemblies and the pledge took place, was decorated with red, white, and blue banners. But the atmosphere felt less warm, more clinical, as if patriotism had been turned into a regulation to be policed rather than a celebration. Whispers circulated that the administration was especially wary of protests or any gestures that could be seen as political statements. Several students had been warned for wearing flag-themed clothing or pins, and a small group had been reprimanded for singing the national anthem too loudly during lunch breaks. Jacob had heard about these incidents, but hadn't thought his simple salute would cause any trouble. Still, the changing mood made him uneasy. The line between respect and defiance was blurring in ways he hadn't expected. Would his quiet gesture be tolerated, or would it become the flashpoint for something much bigger? Principal Harris, a man with a reputation for strict discipline and zero tolerance for dissent, had been watching closely, and the stage was set for the morning when Jacob's salute would lead to an unprecedented showdown. Unseen by Jacob, the principal had already drafted a notice that morning, one that would change everything. Jacob's family had always been rooted in a proud military tradition, stretching back generations. His grandfather, Samuel Turner, was the pillar of that legacy, a retired Navy SEAL whose life was etched with stories of valor, sacrifice, and discipline. Samuel's quiet presence at family gatherings was a steady reminder of what it meant to serve something greater than oneself. From the time Jacob could walk, Samuel had taken it upon himself to teach his grandson about respect. Not just respect for people, but respect for symbols, history, and country. He explained why the flag stood for ideals far beyond the fabric that fluttered in the wind. It was a beacon of hope for many, a reminder of the sacrifices made by those who had faced the harshest battles to protect freedom. Samuel's tales from his years in the SEAL teams weren't just thrilling war stories. They were lessons in integrity and resilience. Every mission, every moment, Samuel would say, you carry not just yourself, but everyone who counts on you. Those words sank deep into Jacob's heart and shaped the way he saw the world. To salute the flag was to honor that responsibility. Jacob's parents supported this upbringing with pride, though they were more cautious. They worried about how a young boy's unwavering patriotism might be perceived in today's divisive climate. But Jacob never wavered. Each morning salute was his way of connecting to something larger, an unspoken promise to stand firm even when the world grew uncertain. At school, Jacob's grandfather's legacy gave him strength, but it also set expectations. He wasn't just any student. He was carrying a family history. The weight of that responsibility fell heavy at times, but it was also a source of pride. It was what gave Jacob the courage to face challenges head-on, even if those challenges came from the very place he sought to express his respect. As the tension around patriotism grew at Lincoln High, Jacob's family watched nervously, knowing that his small act of salute could soon collide with the strict rules and the hardened heart of Principal Harris. The stage was quietly being set for a confrontation neither side truly wanted, but one that would change everything. The morning air was crisp, and the sun barely peeked over the horizon as students shuffled into Lincoln High School. Jacob's heart beat with a familiar rhythm as he took his usual place near the flagpole in the gymnasium, standing tall among the crowd. His hand raised in a sharp, steady salute, he prepared to pledge allegiance, a ritual he cherished deeply. But today, something was different. As Jacob completed his salute, a firm voice echoed across the gym. "Jacob Turner, report to my office immediately." Principal Harris's tone was cold, authoritative, and unmistakably serious. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as students exchanged confused glances. Jacob's eyes narrowed, but his posture remained unwavering. He stepped out of line and walked toward the principal's office, his mind racing, but his resolve unbroken. He knew this moment was coming, though he had hoped it wouldn't. Inside the Stark office, Principal Harris wasted no time. "Your salute during the pledge was deemed disruptive," he said flatly. "Effective immediately, you're suspended for violating school policy. You are to remain off campus until further notice." His eyes bore into Jacob's, as if daring the boy to challenge him. Jacob swallowed hard, but spoke clearly. "I was just showing respect for the flag, sir. I don't see how that's disruptive." Principal Harris shook his head rigid. "It's not about respect. It's about following rules and maintaining order. Your actions are interpreted as political statements, which this school cannot allow." Outside the office, whispers grew louder. Students debated the fairness of the suspension. Some saw it as an overreach, a suppression of basic respect and freedom. Others felt the school was right to keep the peace. Teachers exchanged worried looks, caught between enforcing policy and supporting their students. Jacob left the office with a heavy heart, but a burning determination. The suspension wasn't just a punishment. It was a challenge to everything he stood for. As he walked through the hallways, he saw the faces of friends and strangers alike, some supportive, some doubtful. What Jacob didn't realize was that his family's military ties would soon turn this personal injustice into a public battle, one that would resonate far beyond the walls of Lincoln High. Principal Harris sat behind his polished desk, the weight of his decision settling in. To him, the suspension was a necessary step to maintain order within Lincoln High's halls. The new policy, enacted quietly in recent weeks, aimed to curb any actions perceived as political demonstrations, gestures that might divide students or disrupt the carefully controlled school environment. The principal's rationale was straightforward in his mind. Jacob's salute, while patriotic to some, could be interpreted as a form of protest or endorsement of controversial ideals. In an era marked by heated debates and national polarization, Harris believed the school had to stay neutral to avoid conflict. He wasn't alone. Other administrators had voiced similar concerns behind closed doors. Yet, beneath the official stance, political pressure from the district and community leaders weighed heavily. Some parents had expressed discomfort with overt displays of patriotism, fearing they might alienate students of diverse backgrounds or beliefs. Harris, cautious by nature, was navigating a minefield of competing interests, safety, inclusivity, and freedom of expression. Word of Jacob's suspension quickly spread beyond school walls. Social media platforms buzzed with outrage and debate. Was this an infringement on basic rights? A necessary measure for harmony? The lines of opinion were sharply drawn, and Principal Harris found himself at the center of a growing storm. Meanwhile, Jacob's family was mobilizing quietly. His mother called his grandfather Samuel as soon as she heard the news. The retired Navy SEAL listened carefully, his voice steady but firm. "This isn't just about a boy's salute," Samuel said. "It's about principles. We can't let them silence that." The family reached out to military contacts and veterans groups, preparing to stand beside Jacob. What started as a school disciplinary action was transforming into a fight for respect, honor, and the rights of those who serve. Unbeknownst to Harris, the next morning would bring a dramatic shift, one that would challenge the authority of the principal and change the school forever. The news of Jacob's suspension spread rapidly through the hallways and beyond, sparking a wave of reactions that few at Lincoln High could have predicted. Some students felt confused and conflicted. How could a simple salute, a gesture many saw as respectful and patriotic, lead to such severe consequences? Others whispered in support, rallying quietly around Jacob, while a smaller faction disapproved, wary of the rising tensions. Teachers were caught in the middle, balancing professional duties with personal beliefs. Ms. Ramirez, Jacob's history teacher, expressed her frustration in the staff lounge. "We should be encouraging respect and pride, not punishing it," she said softly. Yet, she also understood the principal's fears of conflict escalating on campus. The student body divided almost overnight. A group of classmates organized a petition demanding the reinstatement of Jacob and a review of the new policies. They plastered posters around campus with slogans like "Respect should never be suspended" and "Salute with pride." Social media campaigns gained traction, drawing attention from local news outlets. Parents chimed in with mixed opinions. Some praised Principal Harris for maintaining order, while others condemned the suspension as an attack on free expression and patriotism. School board members scheduled emergency meetings to address the growing controversy. Meanwhile, Jacob's family was galvanized into action. His mother coordinated calls with veterans organizations and local military officials, seeking their support. The news reached Samuel Turner's old Navy SEAL comrades, many of whom shared a deep sense of loyalty and indignation over the treatment of the young boy. Late that evening, a call came through to Samuel's phone from a familiar number, an old SEAL brother offering solidarity and a promise to mobilize their network. The family felt a surge of hope. They weren't alone in this fight. As the community's support swelled, Principal Harris faced mounting pressure. The school was no longer just a place of learning. It had become a battleground for deeper issues of identity, respect, and patriotism. The next morning promised more than just another day at Lincoln High. The morning sun cast a golden glow over Lincoln High, but inside the school, the atmosphere was anything but calm. The suspension of Jacob Turner had ignited a firestorm, and the ripple effects were evident everywhere, from classrooms to the parking lot, from staff meetings to neighborhood discussions. Veterans and military supporters from the surrounding community began to rally behind Jacob. Word spread quickly through local veterans groups, and soon calls for justice poured in. Letters were sent to the school board, Emails flooded the principal's inbox, and social media campaigns gained momentum. The story was no longer just about a boy and a salute. It had become a symbol of respect for service and patriotism. Jacob's grandfather, Samuel Turner, played a pivotal role in mobilizing support. Using his connections from his Navy SEAL days, Samuel coordinated with local military leaders and veteran advocacy groups. Together, they planned to confront the school administration, demanding that Jacob's suspension be overturned and that the school's policies be reconsidered. Meanwhile, inside the school, students were organizing peaceful demonstrations. Flyers promoting a salute for respect. Events circulated quickly, urging classmates to wear red, white, and blue ribbons and to show solidarity with Jacob. The school's hallways buzzed with whispers and anticipation. Some students were nervous, fearing backlash. Others felt empowered, knowing their voices were being heard. Principal Harris, meanwhile, found himself increasingly isolated. The school board expressed concern over the growing public attention, and district officials hinted at the need for a diplomatic resolution. The principal's once unshakable authority was being challenged from every direction. The local news media caught wind of the unfolding story. Reporters began arriving outside the school, cameras poised to capture the unfolding drama. The community's eyes were now fixed on Lincoln High. Jacob, for his part, remained grounded despite the whirlwind around him. He leaned on the lessons of discipline and courage passed down by his grandfather, ready to face whatever was coming next. The stage was set. What happened tomorrow morning would not only affect one boy's future, but would send a powerful message about respect, unity, and the meaning of patriotism in a divided world. Jacob's grandfather, Samuel Turner, sat quietly in his modest living room, surrounded by mementos of his military career, framed photos of deployments, medals carefully arranged on a shelf, and worn gear that had seen battle. The weight of the current situation rested heavily on his shoulders. This wasn't just about a school suspension. It was about standing up for values that had defined his life. Samuel knew the fight ahead would be tough, but he also understood the power of unity and discipline. Calling upon his old Navy SEAL comrades, he arranged a meeting to strategize their next steps. The veterans were quick to respond. Some had already been contacted by family members. Others had heard the news through veteran networks. There was a shared sense of urgency and purpose. They agreed that the suspension was unjust and symbolized a growing misunderstanding and disrespect for military service and patriotism. Plans began to take shape for a coordinated community response, one that would send a clear message to the school and the wider public. It would be peaceful, dignified, and powerful, something no one could ignore. At the same time, Jacob's parents coordinated with legal advisors and veterans' rights organizations. They explored avenues to challenge the suspension and protect Jacob's rights as a student and as a member of a military family. The goal was clear: to ensure that respect for the flag and those who serve could not be silenced or punished. Back at school, Principal Harris prepared for what he hoped would be a swift resolution, but secretly worried about the growing backlash. He held meetings with staff and district officials, trying to gauge the storm size and potential impact. His stance remained firm. Rules were rules, but he also recognized the need for diplomacy. That evening, as the community gathered for a vigil honoring veterans, Jacob stood with his family, surrounded by those who supported him. The flag waved proudly above, its stars and stripes illuminated by soft lights. Samuel placed a steady hand on Jacob's shoulder, whispering, "This is bigger than us now. Stand tall, like you always do." The next morning, the world would watch as Lincoln High faced a challenge unlike any before, a test of respect, unity, and the true meaning of patriotism. The morning of the anticipated day arrived with a tense calm hanging over Lincoln High. Word had spread that something unusual would occur, and whispers of military involvement circulated among students, teachers, and parents alike. As the school doors opened, the usual crowds were met with an extraordinary sight. Rows of military trucks, heavy and imposing, lined the entrance to the campus, blocking access and drawing a mix of awe and apprehension. Soldiers in uniform stood at attention, their presence a stark reminder of the gravity of the situation. Their stern faces and disciplined posture contrasted sharply with the everyday hustle of school life. The military was making a statement, a show of solidarity and support for Jacob Turner and the ideals he represented. Inside, Principal Harris stood before the school board and military representatives in an emergency meeting. The tension was palpable. The principal's earlier confidence had given way to unease. The arrival of the military trucks was more than symbolic. It was a call for accountability and a challenge to his authority. Outside, students gathered at the gates, some cheering, others silent, but watching intently. Parents and community members clustered nearby, holding signs and banners supporting Jacob. The atmosphere was electric, charged with emotion and anticipation. Jacob himself arrived, flanked by his family and grandfather Samuel. His expression was calm but determined, embodying the very discipline and respect his salute had symbolized. The crowd parted as he approached the school entrance, a young soldier offering a nod of respect. This unprecedented moment marked a turning point, not just for Jacob, but for the entire community. The military presence wasn't about force. It was about honor, remembrance, and demanding justice for one of their own. As the school day began under this extraordinary shadow, the nation watched, waiting to see how the conflict between discipline and authority, respect and regulation would unfold. The sight of the military trucks parked firmly in front of Lincoln High's entrance sent shockwaves through the community and media alike. Cameras from local news stations had arrived, capturing the scene as soldiers in crisp uniforms stood as silent sentinels, guarding not just the school, but the ideals Jacob Turner represented. Inside the school, Principal Harris faced mounting pressure. His office phone rang relentlessly, calls from district officials, concerned parents, and veterans demanding answers. His usual firm demeanor was challenged by the reality unfolding outside his windows. The trucks were not just a display. They were a call for accountability, for respect, and for justice. The principal convened an emergency staff meeting, urging calm and professionalism. Teachers struggled to maintain routine in classrooms overshadowed by uncertainty and heightened emotions. Students whispered in clusters, debating the significance of the military's involvement and what it meant for their school's future. Meanwhile, military representatives met with the school board and local officials in a tense closed-door session. They made clear their stance. Jacob's suspension was unjust and contradicted the values of honor and respect the military upheld. They urged immediate reconsideration and open dialogue. Jacob, standing tall with his family, watched as community members gathered outside, their voices united in support. Among the crowd were veterans sharing stories of service, teachers offering heartfelt letters, and students holding homemade signs proclaiming, "Respect is not a crime." Social media exploded with hashtags and posts calling for justice, spreading the story far beyond Lincoln High. National attention turned to the small schools suddenly at the center of a profound debate over patriotism, discipline, and freedom. Principal Harris now faced a crossroads: hold firm and risk further conflict, or listen to the calls for change and reconciliation. The path he chose would define not only Jacob's future, but the school's legacy. The tension in the community reached a crescendo as social media campaigns and news stories about Jacob's suspension went viral. Hashtags like hashtag Salute with Pride and hashtag Justice for Jacob trended nationwide, catching the attention of veteran organizations, civil rights groups, and political leaders alike. The story quickly moved from a local school controversy to a symbol of broader cultural and political debates about patriotism and freedom of expression. Veterans from across the country stepped forward to share their stories, drawing parallels between their own experiences and Jacob's. Many expressed outrage at the perceived injustice, while others used the moment to reflect on the sacrifices made by military families and the need to honor those sacrifices properly. Jacob's grandfather, Samuel Turner, became a central figure in the public narrative. Interview requests flooded in, and Samuel spoke with quiet authority about discipline, respect, and the importance of standing firm in the face of adversity. His Navy SEAL background lent weight to his words, inspiring many who heard him. Inside Lincoln High, the school's atmosphere remained charged. Some students organized rallies and marches, peaceful demonstrations of solidarity. Teachers tried to keep classrooms focused, but the issue was impossible to ignore. The administration faced increasing calls for transparency and change. Principal Harris, feeling the pressure, issued a public statement reaffirming the school's commitment to inclusivity and order, but failed to address the core concerns, which only fueled public frustration. The school board announced an emergency session to discuss the suspension and the policies that had led to it. Meanwhile, legal advisors representing Jacob and veterans groups prepared to challenge the suspension formally. They argued that Jacob's salute was protected as free expression and that the school's actions infringed on fundamental rights. The stage was set for a high-stakes showdown, not just between a boy and his principal, but between competing visions of respect, authority, and freedom in a divided nation. The day of the emergency school board meeting arrived amid palpable anticipation. Community members, parents, veterans, and students filled the hearing room, their voices a chorus of hope, frustration, and determination. Reporters from local and national media packed the gallery, eager to witness how the board would respond to the swelling calls for justice. Jacob's family sat front and center, his grandfather Samuel calm but watchful. Beside them were representatives from veterans organizations and legal counsel prepared to advocate for Jacob's rights. The weight of the moment was felt by all present. The outcome would reverberate far beyond Lincoln High. Principal Harris opened the session with a formal statement, reiterating the school's policies and the reasons behind Jacob's suspension. He emphasized the importance of maintaining order, but stopped short of acknowledging the broader concerns raised by the community. His tone was firm, but cracks of unease showed beneath his practiced calm. Veterans advocates and legal representatives followed, delivering powerful testimonies about the significance of the flag, the rights of students to express patriotism, and the harmful effects of suppressing such expressions. They argued that Jacob's salute was neither disruptive nor political, but a heartfelt act deserving respect and protection. Several students stood to share personal stories, describing Jacob as a leader and inspiration, someone whose actions united rather than divided. Their heartfelt words moved many in the room, shifting the mood palpably. As the meeting progressed, board members exchanged tense glances, aware of the mounting pressure. The discussion grew heated, but a growing consensus emerged. The suspension needed reconsideration, and the school's policies required revision to better balance respect, freedom, and order. By the session's end, the board voted unanimously to overturn Jacob's suspension and to launch a comprehensive review of the school's policies on expression and discipline. The decision was met with cheers and applause. Jacob's family and supporters breathed a collective sigh of relief, but they knew this victory was only the beginning of a larger journey toward understanding and unity. The news of the school board's decision to overturn Jacob's suspension spread quickly, igniting celebrations throughout the community. Students gathered in hallways, teachers exchanged congratulatory smiles, and veterans groups shared the victory as a testament to the power of solidarity. The atmosphere at Lincoln High shifted from tension to cautious optimism. Jacob returned to school with his head held high, greeted warmly by classmates who had stood with him through the ordeal. His salute during the morning pledge was now met with applause and respect, a symbol not just of patriotism, but of resilience and justice. Teachers renewed their commitment to fostering an environment where students could express themselves freely and respectfully. Meanwhile, Principal Harris faced the reality of a changed landscape. Though his authority had been challenged, he began to engage with the community in earnest, attending forums and meetings to listen and learn. The incident had forced him to reconsider the school's policies and the importance of balancing discipline with respect for individual rights. Jacob's grandfather, Samuel Turner, continued to be a steady presence, encouraging his grandson to use this moment as a platform for positive change. He reminded Jacob that true leadership was about standing for what was right, even when it was difficult. Local media highlighted the story as a victory for free expression and respect for military service, inspiring conversations nationwide. Veterans organizations launched educational programs in schools, emphasizing the significance of the flag and the sacrifices behind it. As the school year progressed, Lincoln High became a model for how communities could come together to address difficult issues with dignity and understanding. Jacob's journey had transformed from a personal challenge into a catalyst for unity and growth. The battle for respect and freedom had been hard-fought, but its lessons would resonate for years to come. Following the board's decision, a sense of healing began to ripple through Lincoln High and the wider community. The school initiated a series of workshops and assemblies focused on the meaning of patriotism, respect, and freedom of expression. These events invited veterans, historians, and civil rights advocates to speak, fostering dialogue among students, staff, and families. Jacob found himself at the center of these efforts, not as a hero seeking praise, but as a young man eager to build bridges. With his grandfather Samuel's encouragement, he began sharing his story in classrooms and community centers, emphasizing the values his family had taught him: discipline, honor, and the courage to stand firm in adversity. Principal Harris, too, took steps to mend fences. He publicly acknowledged the mistakes made in handling Jacob's case and pledged to work closely with students and community leaders to create a more inclusive and respectful school culture. While some questioned the sincerity of his efforts, many appreciated the willingness to change. The media spotlight that had once shone intensely on conflict now highlighted reconciliation. Lincoln High's experience became a case study in balancing authority with empathy, discipline with freedom. Jacob's resolve only strengthened as he looked toward the future. Inspired by the support and change sparked by his ordeal, he set his sights on a career dedicated to public service, hoping to protect and uplift others who, like him, face challenges standing up for their beliefs. Through the trials and triumphs, one truth stood clear: respect for the flag and those who serve is more than a gesture. It is a foundation for unity, courage, and hope. The incident at Lincoln High had not only transformed the school, but also sparked conversations throughout the entire town. Local leaders recognized the importance of addressing the deeper issues that the suspension had brought to light: the tensions between tradition and modern values, freedom of expression and institutional order. City council meetings began to include discussions on how to better support students' rights while fostering an inclusive environment for all. Veteran groups worked with schools to implement educational programs about military service and the significance of national symbols, aiming to build understanding among younger generations. Jacob's story continued to inspire. He was invited to speak at community events and local radio shows, sharing the lessons he had learned about standing up for what matters. His humility and courage resonated widely, especially among youth navigating their own struggles with identity and expression. Samuel Turner, proud but humble, continued to support his grandson while also advocating for veteran affairs. His presence reminded everyone that behind every symbol and salute lies a real story, a sacrifice, a family, a life dedicated to something bigger than oneself. Back at Lincoln High, the school community embraced a renewed spirit of respect and dialogue. Teachers incorporated lessons about civic responsibility and patriotism into their curricula, and students took active roles in shaping a more supportive environment. The principal's office, once a place of confrontation, became a hub for conversations about change and growth. Principal Harris, though still cautious, began to see the power of listening and collaboration. Jacob's salute had started a movement, a call to honor not just the flag, but the values it represents: courage, unity, and respect for all voices. With momentum building from the school and community, veterans organizations began partnering with Lincoln High to create ongoing support networks for students and families connected to military service. These initiatives included mentorship programs, counseling services, and educational outreach, aiming to bridge the gap between military culture and civilian life. Jacob took an active role, volunteering to mentor younger students and speaking at events that promoted understanding and respect. His experiences gave him unique insight into the challenges faced by those who carry the weight of service and the importance of standing up for core values. The school's new policies reflected these efforts. Clear guidelines were established to protect students' rights to express patriotism and support for the military, while ensuring that all voices could coexist respectfully. Staff received training on cultural sensitivity and conflict resolution to better navigate complex issues. Principal Harris, transformed by the experience, became an advocate for open dialogue. He shared his story with other administrators, encouraging schools to adopt more balanced approaches that recognize the nuances of student expression. Outside the classroom, the town embraced the change as well. Local businesses displayed flags proudly. Community events incorporated tributes to veterans, and a renewed sense of unity took hold. The incident had awakened something vital, a collective commitment to honor and respect. Jacob's journey from suspension to symbol of change was complete, yet he knew the work was far from over. The values his grandfather had taught him, discipline, courage, and respect, would guide him as he prepared for a future dedicated to service and leadership. The salute that sparked controversy had become a beacon, illuminating a path toward understanding and hope. As Lincoln High settled into its new chapter, Jacob's story continued to inspire beyond the school grounds. Invitations arrived for him to speak at city council meetings, veterans commemorations, and youth leadership conferences. Each time, Jacob spoke with humility, emphasizing the power of respect, courage, and standing up for what's right. His grandfather, Samuel, watched with quiet pride, knowing the boy had grown into a young man worthy of the Navy SEAL legacy he carried. Their bond remained strong, a source of strength amid the challenges and changes that had come. At school, the ripple effects of the incident influenced not only policies but also the culture. Students from diverse backgrounds found common ground in discussions about patriotism and personal expression. Clubs formed to celebrate military heritage, civic engagement, and social justice, weaving a richer tapestry of understanding. Principal Harris, now more open and engaged, worked alongside students and staff to foster inclusivity and respect. Though some wounds took time to heal, the school community was committed to growth and unity. Meanwhile, the media spotlight on Jacob's story began to fade, but the impact lingered. Conversations sparked by the incident influenced other schools and communities facing similar struggles, encouraging dialogue over division. Jacob's ambitions crystallized. Inspired by his experience, he planned to pursue a career in public service, hoping to protect the rights of those who, like him, needed a voice. The journey from suspended student to community leader was a testament to resilience, honor, and the enduring power of a simple salute. Jacob's determination to serve extended beyond words. With the support of his family and community, he began volunteering with local veterans organizations, helping bridge the gap between military families and civilian life. His efforts brought together people from different walks of life, fostering mutual respect and understanding. At school, Jacob worked closely with counselors and teachers to create programs that encouraged dialogue about patriotism, service, and diversity. These initiatives provided safe spaces for students to share their experiences and learn from one another, breaking down barriers and building empathy. Samuel Turner, proud of his grandson's leadership, continued to mentor Jacob, sharing wisdom drawn from his own years in the Navy SEALs. He emphasized that true strength came not just from courage in battle, but from the resilience to stand for justice and compassion in everyday life. The town embraced these changes as well. Community events began featuring tributes to veterans and educational workshops on the history and meaning of national symbols. Local businesses displayed flags with renewed pride, and public spaces became centers for learning and unity. Jacob's personal growth inspired many young people, especially those from military families, to engage actively in their communities. His story became a beacon, encouraging others to stand firm in their beliefs and work toward a more inclusive and respectful society. The journey from a suspended salute to a movement of respect and unity was a testament to the power of perseverance, honor, and the bonds that hold communities together. As the months passed, Jacob's impact within the school and community deepened. He was no longer just the boy who had been suspended. He had become a symbol of courage and conviction. Teachers invited him to participate in leadership panels, and student organizations sought his guidance on how to navigate difficult conversations about identity, expression, and respect. His relationship with Principal Harris, once strained, began to thaw. The principal acknowledged the lessons learned from the incident and expressed a desire to foster a more inclusive environment. Though their perspectives differed, they shared a commitment to the school's well-being. Jacob's family remained his steadfast support system. Samuel Turner's stories and advice continued to shape Jacob's approach to challenges, grounding him in the values of discipline, honor, and service. Together, they discussed plans for Jacob's future, a future that now seemed filled with possibility. Outside the school walls, the broader community continued to grapple with issues of patriotism and free expression. Local government officials cited Lincoln High's experience as an example of how dialogue and empathy could resolve conflict. Workshops and forums became common, bringing together diverse voices to build understanding. Jacob's journey highlighted the importance of standing firm in one's beliefs while remaining open to dialogue and growth. His salute, once a simple gesture of respect, had sparked a profound conversation about identity, community, and the power of unity. The lessons learned at Lincoln High echoed far beyond its halls, reminding all who heard the story that courage and respect are the foundation of a strong society. Jacob's experience also sparked legislative interest. Local and state lawmakers began discussing policies to protect students' rights to express patriotism and religious beliefs without fear of punishment. Advocates cited Lincoln High's story as a crucial example of why schools must balance discipline with respect for individual freedoms. Veteran organizations took an active role, pushing for educational reforms that included mandatory civics lessons about military service, the significance of national symbols, and the sacrifices behind them. These initiatives aimed to foster respect and understanding among younger generations. Jacob found himself invited to testify before local government panels, sharing his story as a powerful testimony of resilience and the importance of standing up for one's beliefs. His calm and sincere demeanor impressed many, inspiring hope that positive change was possible. Back at school, the atmosphere continued to improve. Students felt empowered to express themselves, knowing their rights were supported. Teachers adapted their curricula to include discussions on constitutional rights and civic responsibility. Principal Harris, though initially reluctant, became a vocal supporter of these changes, advocating for policies that upheld respect and free expression in equal measure. Jacob's journey from a suspended student to a community leader illustrated the transformative power of courage, unity, and the will to fight for justice. His salute, once a simple act, had become a catalyst for change that touched lives far beyond Lincoln High.